we have one of our champions who was there since the beginning in the Virtual Happy Hour presenting his country, South Africa. Austria is with us too. So I think it's a new record in international countries following a presentation. So MG, the stage is on yours, and I'm looking forward to your nice South Africa presentation.
It's a pleasure. Now I just need to figure out how to present, right? So share.
Yeah, I think there should be a button which is sharing your screen, and then
got it.
Hopefully you have the right set of slides open, and then
I do.
And please go in the presenter mode, then we have a full screen. I can already see your slides.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so my name is MG Tauta. I'm from South Africa. I'm going to do introduction to South Africa, an informal one. So I've put on the front of the introduction page some of the highlights from South Africa. I know there's somebody from England here, so I just wanted the World Cup needed to be in there. I was in England when we beat England last year to win the World Cup. I was actually leaving London to go to jet2.com.
Double blow.
Cape Town, as everybody knows, we're also known for our game life, and then the Cullinan Diamond, which is part of the Queen's crown jewels, which we'd really like back sometime. Thank you. So I'm going to do the introduction.
MG, when it got into the crown, it was English. It was England, not South Africa at that time.
Yeah, but we still want it back.
I can discuss about it.
Okay, so who am I? So, like I said, my name is MG Tauta. My full name is Matthias Gijsberg Tauta, but MG is fine. I was born on 10 May 1981, so my birthday was a couple of weeks back. I was born in South Africa. I am married, no kids, but I've got 2 Dachshunds. We're just as busy as kids. What happened?
I just said no, they're not. I'd take dogs any day over kids.
True. I have a bachelor's in commerce in business administration from University of Pretoria. I've lived and worked in 7 countries over the last decade and a half. South Africa, obviously, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Singapore, Philippines, and the United States. And I've also worked for companies such as Etihad, Qatar Airways, Malo Aero Limited, to name a few. My hobbies include reading, rugby, of course. I do like my scuba diving, socializing with friends and family, traveling. You have to love travel in our industry, and eating. So the eating is becoming more and more part of the daily thing as than usual. So that's who I am on a one-pager. And that picture is actually really a picture of my one Dachshund when he was a little bit younger. So let's talk about a little bit about South Africa. South Africa, the rainbow nation. As you can see, that I've put up on a slide showing all the colors of all our provinces. And I've got a couple of interesting facts. I've put the sources at the bottom of the page. If you guys are interested in reading a little bit more about us. So we are the only country in the world that has 2 Nobel Prize winners that lived in the same street, which is Vilakazi Street, Soweto. It's Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu that lived close to each other. South Africa has 11 official languages with ISL currently in the process to be added as an official language as well. ISL is International Sign Language. South Africa has the 2nd largest economy in Africa. Until about 2 years ago, we were the largest. Nigeria has overtaken us. For our wine lovers, South Africa is home to the largest wine cellar in the world. The KWV cellars in Paarl covers an area of 22 hectares and has a capacity of 121 million liters of wine. Is that enough for you, Daniel?
So you have the big capacity, but you are not the second exporters, isn't it? It's just that you have the capacity to grow this wine.
No, in this specific case, we've got the biggest wine cellar in the world.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So South Africa, in terms of size, is 5 times the size of Japan and 3 times the size of Texas. One of our public hospitals, the Chris Baragwanath Hospital in Soweto, is the biggest hospital in the world. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that Johannesburg is actually the biggest man-made forest in the world. The city has more than 10 million trees lining its streets. South Africa is only one of 2 countries that have hosted the World Cups for football, cricket, and rugby.
Which is the other one?
England.
There we go. I was waiting for that. So South Africa has the world's deepest hard rock gold mine, up to 3,900 meters underground. I think I read last night that 90% of all precious metal actually comes from South Africa at this stage. Something that I'll discuss later, but as you can see in the graph at the bottom, is that the current SA unemployment rate is plus minus 29%. It was last measured in January at 29.1. We expect that to go much higher and up to 50% by the end of the year. Now, when we did the Sweden one, there was a very nice saying that the guy from, I can't remember how you pronounce it, about how everybody drank together because everybody shared. Right now, we have a similar concept, and it's called Ubuntu. Now, Ubuntu refers to behaving well towards others and acting in ways that benefits the community. Such acts could be as simple as helping a stranger in need, or much more complex ways of relating with others. A person who behaves in these ways has Ubuntu. He or she is a full person. So Ubuntu is a South African culture thing, is where you help each other to achieve Ubuntu is almost the South African version of enlightenment. And it is a very nice concept that we have here in South Africa. Any questions so far?
Not yet.
Okay. So traditional South African foods. So bobotie and yellow rice. So bobotie is a type of, the bottom part of it is a type of curried meatloaf, and then it's covered with a spiced egg savory custard, and it's always served with yellow rice and raisins. Then we've got bunny chow. Now, there is no bunnies hurt in this presentation. So a bunny chow is basically an invention from Durban, where we have a very large Indian population. We'll get to that later as well. And after people worked in the sugar plants in the mines, in the evenings when they wanted to go home, they got bunny chow. Now, bunny chow allows you to actually have it's normally a mutton curry that is put into a hollow bread. Now, the reason for that is that the bread becomes the container. So as people walk back home, they use the stuffing that was originally inside to eat the mutton, and then the rest of the bread. So the bread becomes the container. So it was an easy way of people getting food and having to walk with it home and eat it as well.
Why is it called bunny? I mean, chow is a soup, but where does the name bunny come from?
I am not precisely sure. Like I said, it comes from the Indian culture in Natal. Okay. So chow means eat in South Africa. I'm going to go chow something, so eat something.
Okay.
So that's slang for eat. Now, biltong, I don't know if we've got any Americans in here.
No.
Okay, so biltong is not jerky. Jerky is like soap. Biltong is cured meat, normally with salt. So they cure the meat over a couple of weeks in some vinegar, coarse salt, coriander. They hang it up to dry. It is delicious, and it's these days it's part of a keto diet because it's basically red meat and it fills you up. Then boerewors, as same as braai.
Angie, sorry, biltong, is that, so what kind of meat is that? Is that beef or is that lamb or what is it?
It's beef, but it's also made from game.
Yeah, we do this a lot with game. I do this with goose breasts. We do this with reindeer, lamb.
Reindeer would be perfect, yeah. So because we also so beef is the easiest to get, but game like kudu and eland and springboks and impala.
In Newfoundland, they do it with moose, basically. That's my family does it with moose in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
So I think it's a way of doing it more, isn't it? Biltong.
And it tastes much better than jerky.
Yeah, way better.
It's already in the name. I mean, what's in jerky? Jerk.
And okay, so also we have boerewors, which is also a type of South African wurst for our German friends. Also, once again, they like putting coriander in it, and it's quite, and it's always done on a braai. A braai is open fire grill. We believe that a barbecue is a line outside of a barber, so we call it a braai.
What is it?
It takes a while to digest that.
Or is it wild boar? What is it made of, the sausage?
It's normally it's beef with a little bit of pork, and it's encased. The casing is normally sheep.
Okay.
But so boer is not like boar. It's like farmer, right?
Yeah. So
Oh.
basically it means farmer's wurst.
Bauernwurst.
Yeah.
Bauernwash.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that.
Does it have something to do with the Boer people in South Africa who fought against the English?
No.
No.
Not really. I think this just came out of biltong was more part of that because of a curing due to they had to find a way of curing meat when they moved from the Cape Colonial province up into the north, which was then called the Orange Free State and Transvaal republics. And then we've got milk tart. Now, I believe South African milk tart is the best, but I know it's very similar to the Greek milk tart. So there's a lot of variations about it, but we just use a lot of what is the spice that they put on top of it? Cinnamon. So they've now recently found a way to make alcoholic shooters that tastes like milk tart, which is probably not good for the diabetes, for people that have diabetes. Now, something very traditional and is mopane worms and pap. So pap is eaten almost daily by millions of South Africans, and that's the white part of it's a type of maize. It is polenta in a sense, but it's just white maize. And mopane worms you can only find them where mopane trees are, and they are quite nutritious. I've had them before. However, don't have a memory of how they tasted like. Probably like chicken. But that's very traditional in certain parts of the country.
So I remember on this food thing, I remember in the years 2012, I believe it was, to 2013, no, 10 and 11, it doesn't matter. I spent a lot of time in Abu Dhabi, in one particular hotel on Yas Island, where the crew at the bar were South Africans, black South Africans. And because I had business in South Africa as well, and I was traveling a lot between Abu Dhabi and South Africa, I ended up being a bit of a little cargo airplane, because whenever I flew to South Africa, these guys said, well, you need to make sure you bring us biltong and sour apple. So they were completely hung up on biltong because they couldn't get that in the UAE, and sour apple. Now, sour apple is dreadful. In Germany, it's something that you drink when you're 14 or 15, is your first alcoholic experience, and it's something that is so memorable that you never want to drink it again. But it seemed that at least these boys, they loved that. So was that just a sign of desperation for these guys, or is that truly something that people drink there?
That was a trend. If you're talking about 2011, 2012, that was a trend. Everybody had sours.
Are you talking?
There was different ones.
Are you talking
raspberry sours and
sour apple? Is that what you mean?
No,
Yeah.
apple sours. It's actually called apple sours.
It was not the German sour apple, Christian. It was stuff in South Africa. It was like Tang or something. It was a brand. So
Tango.
No, Tango is a pop, like a soft drink.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Yeah. No, I ended up making my own biltong in Singapore. You do start to miss it. It is a nice little snack to have. Any questions on our food? Anything that you guys would like to try?
I'd like to try everything.
I don't see
on the next page now.
MG, I don't see springbok and all of the other wildlife here on the food list. Is that just for tourists?
That's in the biltong, right?
Or is it more Namibia?
Yeah. So but we have a restaurant not too far from a house called Carnival, and they've got crocodile and all the different types of game. And when you go there, they come around and they carve for you. And you've got like a yellow, green, and red marker. If you put the red mark up, they stop bringing you food. But if you put the green mark up, they bring you, and there's crocodile, and there's
like Brazilian
eland. Restaurants called Carnival.
Like a Brazilian churrascaria.
Yeah, sounds like
correct.
Yeah, I think where my next trip has to go to.
And
or the restaurant.
Brazil's steaks are amazing. Argentina just as well. So, what are we as South Africans are doing during COVID-19? So, we braai basically 3 or 4 times a week. Most of the times it's steak with boerewors. We have a running joke that chicken and mutton is side dishes to our braai. So we braai, and we like sitting outside with a fire and having our steak and our boerewors, and obviously salads and all the other side dishes like chicken or whatever. So we are under lockdown. We can't leave our house. That late last night, the president came on and said that we will go down to level 3 from the 1st of June, which means that there's no more curfew and there's some more free movement. We can now buy alcohol. We still cannot buy cigarettes for some reason. So some of these some of the restrictions we had are being relaxed from June 1st. So the other thing we've done, it's very similar to what we're doing now, is every Friday night, me and the rest of my family, we have a braai and we do it via Zoom.
Yeah, but sorry, here I need to interfere. I'm a bit disappointed that you are mentioning Zoom, because all the virtual happy hours are done via Teams.
Yes, but
sorry, say family and friends.
Also, you have to disconnect and reconnect every 30 minutes for Zoom.
I think now we have to stop the recording and the presentation is finished now.
Yeah, actually, VHH should be standing there.
So Zoom is just easier because some of my family members are not so technically inclined. So I just send them the link and it's easier. Trust me. So
how different to Teams? Oh, okay, let's not get carried away.
You know what? You can put you can see a lot more people on the screen than Teams. And it doesn't take as much bandwidth as Teams. And so like if my father uses his laptop, his company which we probably will discuss later, does not allow outside email addresses on the Teams. So we just found that Zoom was easier. And also you can use it from your phone. Then also, most of us will probably need some more clothes after the lockdown. Luckily now from the 1st of June, we can go exercise outside as long as it's not in groups. But exercise ban has now been lifted in South Africa. So currently we're still eating like we're eating for 4 people, but we'll start going the healthy route very, very shortly. And then South Africans have a rather big affinity to our cars, and since the lockdown we have not been allowed to drive. If you did not have an essential worker permit, you're not allowed to leave. Daniel, you will be glad to see that we only drive German cars in our house.
No, that's good. It's somehow a good proof of that you are a quality admirer. That's good.
But
So, yes.
Do you have a question now? Since will that that rule that you're not allowed to drive actually continue past the COVID crisis, so that the negative effects of eating will be basically overcome by letting you not use the car and do a walk?
No, that'll be personal perseverance, right? But now from the June 1st, we can drive wherever we want to. Currently, you can only drive to medical facilities and so grocery stores. Ours is across the road, right? So it's about 200 meters. So we were not that lucky.
That health policy ends there and does not take care of you after the crisis is over.
That's true. That's true. But I think the eating is a big part of it. Eating is caused by boredom.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
It's like going to the fridge every half an hour and opening it up and then looking at what's in the fridge, but you know you're not hungry, right? Yeah. So as you can see on the left-hand corner, there's a small little thing that says "as requested." So I've added some South African wines, and if I believe it was Marco that last put that bottle with the 93 sticker on it, correct?
Yes.
So I pulled a couple of wines from Vivino, So the Torin, which is a blend from Stellenbosch, it has a Vivino score of 4.9 out of 5. Then a Canoncop, which is a really good brand. I'm actually drinking, and I'm drinking Baron now. From Stellenbosch. It's a Pinotage. Now, Pinotage is only made in South Africa. The grape is a variant that was created here. So I'm not sure whether anybody here has ever had Pinotage before.
Of course.
And it's a lovely wine. And it is our version of a, let's almost say it as a Bordeaux. It's only made in South Africa. Then we've also got a Silverboom Shiraz Merlot made from the Swartland area, which is also an extremely nice wine. And then I like my white wines. So my favorite wine is Sauvignon Blanc, which is from the Elgin area. I actually like any wine from the Elgin area because the ground is much more arid. So those are some of the wines that I thought I'll just put up there and put real scores, not fake stickers, on the bottles.
But which one would you suggest actually?
I would suggest, if I had to choose between these, I would go for the Canoncop Pinotage.
No, I mean from the white wine. Because I also rather drink white wine.
This one, the Iona. I'm a very, very big fan of Iona. It's in South African terms, it's expensive. When I mean South African terms, it's about £11. But
15 euros. I just checked.
Sorry, €11. But
yeah, okay. Depending on the year, I'm just looking. It's between 15 and 13 euros, something around.
So in South African terms, that's a lot of money for a white wine. But I think internationally probably not. But it is amazing wine. Daniel, no comments on the wine?
In the reds, and I can tell you, I also tested some phenomenal South African Shiraz, and I'm always amazed from this very fruity flavor. Of course, that's my taste. I like these very fruity and very heavy red wines, and awesome, really awesome.
So next time you guys do a virtual one, maybe we can sort of, after the lockdown, see if we can get. I'll make the arrangements.
MD, I'm missing the Negroni, by the way.
Sorry?
I'm missing the Negroni on this chart.
This is only wines.
Yeah, right? I know. I'm just.
So what do you, MG? What do you guys drink with your game? So we drink in Iceland a lot of Rioja with our game. So with reindeer, geese, our lamb is pretty much game. So what do you go for when you're drinking red wine with game or braai?
Okay, so it depends on the situation. If you go out with the boys on a hunt trip, then it's brandy and Coke, right? When it's in a more formal setting and the wives are there, we drink red wine with our game.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but normally when we're out doing the hunting thing, or it's just a normal braai, it's nothing special. Most brandy and Coke is the most, except beer, is the most drank beverage in South Africa. But it's only specific South African brandies. So ones that are not. It's not cognac. Cognac. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Okay.
Lionel van der Waal, who is actually from South Africa, also one of our virtual happy hour members, just apologized. He can't make it, but he's based out of the US, so I assume he's affected business-wise, because for him, I think it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
He's in Miami. Yeah,
he's in Miami. That's why.
Yeah. Okay, so
it's interesting that food and wine keeps people engaged.
Yes.
Food and alcohol. I mean,
Now, but next,
this exclusive and sophisticated round of course is focused on wine, not on you out.
yeah, we'll need to do that wine trip. One of the facts that I didn't put is that South Africa has actually got the longest wine route in the world.
And you actually have some fantastic sparkling wines as well.
MCC. So yeah, we call the Mefit Classic Cup. So yeah, there's a couple of good ones, but like I said, we've got the longest wine route in the world. So we can one day when you guys come, we can try and do the wine route, but I don't know if we'll make half of it before stumbling out of a car. Okay, so next is influential and famous South Africans. I was thinking of also putting in some controversial ones, but I thought I'll keep it positive. So obviously everybody knows about Elon Musk from Tesla. He's from Johannesburg. Then we have Dr. Christian Barnard, who's a physician who did the first heart transplant. Then, as a citizen of South Africa, Mahatma Gandhi, who practiced law in Natal and started his civil disobedience program after being thrown off a train because by the British, when the British were still in control, for being in the whites only part of a train. So I don't think a lot of people know that Mahatma Gandhi was a South African citizen. He was born in India, came to South Africa and practiced law in Pietermaritzburg. Then somebody that Daniel would probably know who it is Gary Player.
So you're not mentioning Ernie Els? Of course, yeah. Gary Player, one more major, of course. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
If I had to choose Gary Player or Ernie Els, I would choose Gary Player. Now, Gary Player has a saying which I like to use. They once in an interview they told him he seems to be very lucky, and he said the more I practice, the luckier I get. Right. So I think I chose him because we had a couple of good golf players to choose from. Daniel, did you know that South Africa is second in the running behind the USA of countries that won the most majors?
No, I didn't know that. I saw, okay, with Gary Player, of course, and then also, what is the younger game now?
Swartzel.
Yeah, but also the other guy. What's his name? But you have a bunch of good players, that's true. But I was thinking England would be having more winners. Okay. That's why I love the Virtual Happy Hour. We really learn things for life.
So that's also why I've got the sources in the bottom if anybody wants to go check up on me. Then Desmond Tutu, who I'm a very big fan of. He's a cleric and a Nobel Peace Prize winner as well. And then at the bottom, Princess Charlene. I think I made a spelling mistake there. I'm missing an S. Princess Charlene of Monaco. She was also an Olympic athlete, for those that did not know.
That's how to know each other, because he's in the Olympic Committee.
That I didn't know.
See?
Then Trevor Noah, who's a late night TV host in the US. I think everybody, and comedian.
He's a cool guy.
And very impersonation of Indian accents.
No.
Anyway, let's stay on topic. Then we've got, going a bit further back, General Jan Smuts, who was a statesman, president, and the Prime Minister of South Africa. It would be good for the history buffs to go read up about him. He was one of his biggest accomplishments was he was the founding member of a League of Nations, which is today called the United Nations. Then I've got J.R.R. Tolkien, that says English author. Now, J.R.R. Tolkien was born in Bloemfontein, Free State, in South Africa, and later in life, in his childhood, his mother and his two brothers moved to England. So we do claim him as a South African, as he was born here. Same with Elon Musk, etc. And then lastly, but definitely not least, is Nelson Mandela, who was our first president of post-apartheid South Africa and a joint Nobel Peace Prize winner with F.W. de Klerk in the early 90s. So I only chose these 10 people. There's a couple of other people that I thought of putting on, but some of them were a little bit controversial. The controversial people I wanted to put on was Oscar Pistorius, who was called the Blade Runner, Caster Semenya, Arnold Vosloo, the actor, but that was for bad acting. So I decided to stay on the positive side and look at influential.
Are there also influential guys from the aviation industry?
Excuse me?
Are there also influential people from the aviation industry coming from South Africa?
There is one that I know of, had the world record for the most flight hours, because he started flying during the Second World War, through the Korean War and everything. So
why did you miss Charlize Theron? I would have put her. She's beautiful.
So I had to choose between Charlize Theron and Trevor Noah.
Okay, I would have picked Charlize Theron.
But the thing is, Trevor Noah is now with politics in the US. I think his commentary is now more influential now than Charlize. But I didn't know. I was unsure to choose between Trevor or Charlize.
Well, that's where you made the spelling mistake with Princess Charlene, because you were like sort of halfway already on the way to.
Yeah,
I would have taken her out and put Charlize Theron there. Actually.
Oh, well, we've got some royal blood.
So, yeah, but in Monaco, they are only pirates. They are not royal, actually. So I don't know.
Just to remind everybody, you are on record. Yeah,
yeah, it's okay.
So okay, let's just go ahead. Any questions or any? Let me ask it this way: is there any famous or known South Africans that you think I should have rather put on this list, except Charlize Theron?
I don't know.
And Andre Brink, maybe?
Sorry?
Do you know Andre Brink? He's a writer.
Andre Brink.
Yes.
He also won a Nobel Prize for writing. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
So,
He was.
I used to read him a lot at one point in time. Yeah.
No, he was a brilliant writer. No, I actually went through the Nobel Peace Prize winners, and I think we've won about not peace but Nobel Prize winners. I think we've got 9 of them, which Andre Brink is one of them. Is anybody surprised at Mahatma Gandhi?
No, I knew about that.
Kelvin, you are surprised about it, isn't it?
No, I knew that. I knew that he was very politically influential, and he wasn't a South African citizen. So I knew it.
I never saw a South African flag while seeing him walking and speaking. I've never seen a reference to South Africa.
Yeah, No, all the stories, I mean, whenever the freedom movement in India starts, it always starts with Mahatma Gandhi, campaigning for the movement starting in Johannesburg, not in India. He started the movement in Johannesburg. So it's always there in the history books.
But I didn't know. So is he a South African citizen, or are you claiming him to be South African because he practiced in South Africa?
No, he was a South African citizen because only South African citizens could practice law in South Africa. But he was born in India, and he returned to India, gave up his citizenship.
Well, yeah, the most interesting part is that he started the campaign movement. He called for the Indians living in South Africa to come together and start protesting in Johannesburg, in South Africa. That was the big change.
And if I remember well, this has been shown in a film, but I don't remember the name of the film.
Gandhi.
This story. Gandhi, well, probably a more recent film than Gandhi. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think even the film starts in South Africa, actually.
So we have other infamous Indian leadership, but we don't talk about them. They're called the Guptas. They and President Zuma were very good friends. I don't know if anybody else knows about the Guptas. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to move on to the next page. So, well-known South African inventions. So, the CAT scan was invented in South Africa, and that was also a Nobel Prize winner. So, the CAT scan comes from South Africa. Have you guys ever seen in the harbors those big, funny T-shaped cement blocks in the harbors? That's called dolisse, and that is also a South African invention created by Eric Merrifield. It's unusually shaped concrete blocks weighing up to 20 tons. The structures are designed to break up wave action and protect harbor walls and coastal installations. So, oil to gas. So, South African government realized that South Africa had minimal oil reserves, and this led to the South African Coal, Oil and Gas Corporation, which is called Sasol, which was the world's first and still largest oil from coal refinery. And then we've got the creepy crawly. Now, I don't know who has pools and who has creepy crawlies, or a version of it.
No, negative.
Okay, so it's a machine plugged into your pool that actually cleans your pool automatically. So Ferdinand Xavier tried to figure out a way to take the hassle out of pool cleaning. The result was the creepy crawly, and the first one was created in South Africa in 1974. Then we have the heart transplant, which was done in 1967 by Dr. Christian Barnard. There's two other products which I wanted to just mention. One is Q20. Have you guys ever heard of Q20? A lubricant for oil. And the other one is Pratley Putty. Now, what makes Pratley Putty interesting, it was used on the Apollo 11 mission to keep everything together on the spacecraft.
So what's it? Is it like glue or?
It's a putty that if you leave it long enough, it becomes like iron. That hard. It becomes that hard. So as soon as it's exposed to air, the putty becomes a hard substance. So you guys can go and have a look at Pratley Putty if you have time. Also, the link, the sources are on the top, in the bottom for you guys to go and look at. So, worldwide recognized South African brands. So I had it was quite difficult for me to decide which ones to put here. So I decided to go in different areas. So in foods, Nando's is not a Portuguese restaurant. It comes from South Africa, but makes Portuguese African food. Right? So Nando's is a South African brand.
Never heard of it.
You see that all-
Me neither, and I'm Portuguese.
So
Strange, yes.
it is getting traction across the world.
Yeah.
It's Beyonce's favorite food. I don't know what that means,
Good.
but
That's not.
it is really good. Unfortunately, the chicken
Yes,
is quite
On
chicken is,
Frankfurt, unbelievable.
But the food
So-
is the Portuguese food, you say. Portuguese African, a mixture, that's it.
yes, because they use the chili that they use is the bird-eye chili that's found in
Mhm.
Mozambique.
Yeah, exactly.
So but Nando's is quite expensive chicken if you compare it against KFC. That's why there's a running joke in South Africa. But the chickens are also nice because they all have their own medical aid.
Mhm.
Then healthy living, Vitality is the world's largest behavioral platform linked to financial services. It encourages and rewards positive behavior change and creates shared value. It's part of a Discovery Group and it's currently active in 21 countries. Right. But what makes Vitality actually valuable is all of the data, the personal data that it generates in all of those countries on individuals. Then in the technology space, we've got Naspers, who runs the Media24 group, Showmax, which is the competitor for Netflix here. They are quite a big conglomerate, and they are one of the world's largest technology investors. They own 31% of Tencent. So it's a very big company, and they basically own all the media in South Africa. Now, with mining, once again, I had a couple of choices whether I go with De Beers, some of the other mining companies. You'll notice I didn't put Cecil John Rhodes in the influential list. So Anglo American is a global mining company with a portfolio that spans over diamonds, platinum, copper, iron ore, and more. So that's in the mining industry. In the consumer industry, I chose a product. So the product is rooibos tea. So rooibos is a type of shrub which is called fynbos. That's only found in the Western Cape region of South Africa. So it's a type of tea, and it's apparently much more healthy than normal tea. So those are some of the recognized South African brands. I hope you recognize some of them.
Well,
Any
no, I'm surprised nobody else recognizes Nando's because they're not limited to South Africa.
They're all over the UK.
Yeah, and they're in Singapore, if I'm not mistaken. You see them in other places.
Singapore. Yeah.
And what about South African Airways?
I'm getting to that. I'm doing the good news first.
Ah,
Okay, so what is the status of COVID-19 in South Africa? So this was as the latest data that I got on Saturday. So we have confirmed cases of 21,343 cases as of the 23rd of May. We've done 564,000 cases, 370. That's the most cases of any country in any tests in any other country in Africa. We've so far have had 407 deaths with more than 10,000 recoveries. You will notice that Gauteng is a hotspot, Eastern Cape is a hotspot, and then by far the Western Cape is much higher. Now, this looks like, okay, Western Cape has a higher rate of infection, which is not really true. Now, the Western Cape is run by a different political party. So since day one, they have been doing vigorous testing as well as contact tracing. So the reason why their numbers are so high is because of the numbers of tests that they've done. So they've done more than 30 or 40% of the country's testing to get to that number. So they have now announced more testing and contact tracing in the other provinces. And we are expecting a surge where this will slow down, but we are expecting a surge in the other provinces. As you guys know, as I told you, no alcohol sales is currently allowed, as well as no cigarettes. A lot of us find that silly.
What's the reason?
Oh, do you really want to know? Because it's a joke in South Africa.
That's what I would like to know.
So
smoking, I understand. It's not good for your health, but
that's not the reason.
Maybe it can. Yeah.
Well, that's not the reason that the Department of Health gave in an interview, and there's a lot of mockery about it. So they call it a Zol, right? It's tobacco that's rolled, right? It's like people, they put their saliva on the Zol, then they give it to other people. So we've made a big joke of it. So but the person that is in charge of that is her own bias is she hates smoking, right?
Okay.
That's the reason. It's drinking as well.
So and it's very well known that if back in the cabinet, if people were smoking, she would chase him out of chambers or out of the areas where she was. There's a joke currently going like, dear Mr. John Wick, this lady stole your dog. Anyway, so what this, in all honesty and seriousness, brings is there was a lot of break-ins into liquor stores for liquor. Now that it's opening up in June 1 again, that will probably stop. But the two big effects this had on our country is loss of revenue, as well as the growth of the black market. So these are still available. If you know the right person, the only thing it's now where a packet of cigarette costs you 50 Rand, which is equivalent to about 2.5 euros. It now costs you 10 euros. So all that they've done is they've enabled the black market and caused billions of rands of revenue loss because people are still smoking, right? And if you need any more up-to-date information on the status of COVID-19 in South Africa, you can go to nicd.ac.za. All our data is updated there on a daily basis. Okay, so let's talk about our South African economy. So currently, so there's a very nice website called tradingeconomics.com. If you guys have not been there, please try and go and have a look at that website. It does it by country and it gives you amazing data. So currently, the South African rand is the most volatile currency in the emerging markets. as you can see on this graph. This graph was I pulled out from tradingeconomics.com. Currently, our employment is 29.1% and rising. There's an expectation by the end of the year that it could be up to 50%, depending on how long the lockdown will continue. There is a lot of companies that have started with Section 189, which is our form of retrenchment or furloughing, where people will be retrenched and companies restructured. Also recently, by Moody's and S&P and others, we have been downgraded to sub-investment grade, which had quite an effect. And I think you can see it happened there. It happened there when we had our downgrade to junk status. So some of the reasons that happened is high levels of debt in our state-owned enterprises, corruption, as well as political uncertainty. Our previous president now currently faces 739 corruption cases in court. He tried to get it thrown out, but with a false medical certificate, but was caught out, and he is now got fined for that. So, based on the most recent, in April or March, Bloomberg expected the South African annual inflation rate to rise up to 4.5% till the end of the year. Currently, based on the data that's been accumulated, as we expect the South African annual inflation rate to fall under 2%. As you can see, there's the negative trend in our inflation rate going down. It's currently at just between about 4.1, but we expect it to end around 2% by the end of the year. Now, importantly, South African GDP annual growth rate forecast shows us a negative linear line and negative bars for 2021 up to January 2022, and there we have our trend line on our GDP growth. So the local growth outlook, I'm just going to read this for you, is the economy of South Africa, which is already likely to expand at less than full economic potential over the next 2 years, will now experience an even more depressing outlook as the coronavirus continues to spread. Country lockdowns, low levels of economic activities, low real wage growth, depressed consumption, credit ratings downgrade, increasing cost of servicing debt will force institutions to cut capital expenditure and undergo debt stress or reduce the labor force. Remember, I spoke to you about the retrenchments coming up. There's a lot of companies that are restructuring their companies to work with minimum labor force. So it's not a good look for us currently. It's a bit volatile, and the growth outlook is negative going forward.
MG,
over the next couple of years.
MG, how does that relate or translate to immigration both into South Africa as well as going out of South Africa? The latter, I have some first-hand experience of people that basically, it's white South Africans that have said, look, that's it, thank you very much. We're migrating over, moving over to the UK or to other places. So what's how is the economic situation translating both into influx of immigrants as well as South Africans moving abroad?
So the moving abroad, it's a very good question. The moving abroad usually was confined to South Africans that said, okay, I had enough of this, right? Where currently it is now the people with money, whether it's race-based, whether they're black or white or or Chinese. If you have enough money, people are emigrating to other countries. But at the same time, we have countries like Mozambique and Zimbabwe that are bordering us that are actually much worse off than we are. So we've got that lower skill level incoming immigrants, and the business owners and the people with enough cash and assets leaving the country. And those people that are leaving the country are actually the taxpayers, because
sounds like a pretty toxic mix.
Correct, because 10% of the whole country's tax, sorry, 90% of a whole country's tax is paid by 2%.
2% of the people are paying 90% of the tax. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay, wow.
Here.
Yes.
Hi, guys. Sorry for joining late.
No worries.
I just wanted to add on that. I don't know how many people know about it, and I'm not sure what the latest status is, but you could maybe elaborate on it, is that part of the problem is also hate crimes. And when I say hate crimes, I'm not talking about black and white. I'm talking about all of these people coming from Zimbabwe and Mozambique into South Africa now. Yes. The local South African people are attacking them and killing them because they see them taking away their opportunities and their business, correct?
Yes. So xenophobia has, over the last 2 years, become a problem. As the unemployment has risen, as you can, it was, I think it was in a previous slide, where I had the graph for the unemployment. As it has risen, and you had your incoming immigrants from countries that are faring worse than we, or had less opportunities than we do, that has now caused a problem of xenophobia, where it is, okay, you guys are taking our jobs away, but it is a double-edged sword. If you go to restaurants now, I can promise you 90% of the waiters are Zimbabweans.
It sounds a bit like, in 30 years ago in Germany, basically people were pulled into the country to do jobs the locals didn't want to do. Is that the case in South Africa as well?
That's precisely, because remember, a big part of, and we're going into politics now, but a big part of our expenditure, and that's why we are struggling to actually pay our debt, is we have grants, right? So if you have a certain amount of kids and you don't work, you get a grant. If you don't work, you get a grant. If you've got a disability, you get a grant. So why go work if you're going to get grants? And the more children you get, the more grants you get.
Okay. So that's Germany or South Africa?
Oh, that wasn't Germany once. Oh, no,
because Germany is the same, no?
Not anymore.
No, I remember that it was like that. I remember that Germany had a lot also of Turkish people and with lots of children, and they got lots of income as well regarding the number of children that they had.
Yeah, you get a certain amount of income when you have, but
it's true.
I'm not sure you can consider 150 euro a month income if that's what you get the state for your.
Maybe it depends where you live. If you live in a country where 600 euros is the minimum wage, and where you have to pay a rent for a flat above the minimum 600 as well. So I think it's quite helpful. Yeah, this is what's happening now in Portugal. I mean, at least in Lisbon, it's quite outrageous. I mean, you need to pay for the rent in a flat 2,000 euros a month, or and the minimum wage is 600 euros. So Doesn't make any sense. And if you have a child, then you receive 40 euros a month. So compared to 150, I think it's quite good.
Oh, of course, 150 is good, but it's not nearly covering the cost of a child. I mean,
of course not. But that's not. I mean, you have a child because you want to have a child. I think no.
180.
Yeah.
The only country that I know that actually does really help with that is Singapore, where they give you like a 20,000 Singapore dollar bonus when you have a child, but that is done on purpose because of a negative population growth.
Of course. This is one of the reasons that the countries are providing also an additional income or stimulation for increasing the population, of course.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, is there any questions on our South African economy? If you guys really want, yeah.
I've just got one question for you, and I don't know if you've covered it and I missed it, but in the news here in the US, there's a lot about China's investment and control over the South African economy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not
true.
I wouldn't say that's based on South Africa. I would say that's based on Africa as a whole. Just remember that South Africa is part of BRICS, correct? There's also the whole thing with the Russian nuclear stations that they wanted to build. Some of it is just rumors. Most of it is just rumors, because there was a rumor at one stage that Chinese will become a language in school. They are definitely investing, but not on the level of what you guys are hearing.
Okay.
Look,
I think they are investing all over Africa. That's what I read. I read an article about.
Yes, and it's all over Africa, but they're smart. I think it's one of the ports in Malawi which couldn't pay their debt, so it defaulted to the Chinese government.
So they print money basically, and then interesting, yeah.
Correct. So there is with the current government, there is a strong relationship with the Chinese as well as Russia. But as for the level of investment that people are talking about, that's just not true. Both my spouse works in economics, and my dad is the manager, is the director of investments for Discovery.
What is that?
Lionel knows it's one of our biggest financial services companies.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think American Express was tied in with Discovery at one stage, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Ari, you missed it. I was talking about worldwide recognized brands. And I was talking about Vitality. It's now active in 21 countries, which is part of a Discovery group, right? So Vitality is connected with Amex.
But the most important one is Nando's, guys. Let's be clear.
See, I told you guys.
We don't even know.
But
I didn't know Nando's, Lionel.
No,
listen.
I have in UK actually in Europe.
I actually did a barbecue yesterday with Nando's. And
sorry,
Nando's is a
sorry,
brand
it's a braai.
that you find,
sorry, it's a braai.
It's a braai. But you have Nando's in the US. It's a brand that's busy expanding now.
Yep. Hopefully it expands more. They still don't have Steers, which I think is the best burgers in the world. But that's a different conversation. Let's not start with burgers. So, book recommendations. We had a little bit of a conversation about this the other day. I don't think Marco really understood when I spoke about factfulness. But my book recommendations for this year is Thinking Fast and Slow. It's done. Thinking Fast and Slow was written by Daniel Kahneman. He's a psychologist and also a Nobel Prize winner in economics. That explains that there's two ways of two systems in the way we think. One is fast, intuitive, and emotional, and system two is slower, more deliberative, and more logical. And then in how you can use those to make your decision making better. And then factfulness is basically the 10 reasons we're wrong about the world and why things are better than you think it is. And in a nutshell, it is. I've got that presentation where you do 12 questions on how the world is faring, and the average of people that people get right is about 3. And the reason is because we have a negative bias. So most of us believe that the world is poorer, less healthy, and more dangerous than it actually is. And we are attributing that to random chance, which it is not. It's actually misinformation.
Yeah, I cannot agree on that because we called it virtual happy hour. We didn't call it virtual sad hour.
Okay, but these are my book recommendations for this year. And
Yeah,
okay.
Hey, but that
Now,
one book is old. It's from 2012, isn't it? I don't know. It's for this year, is it?
One is from 2018.
Fast
and
and
Speaking
Slow, I
Fast
think
and
it's quite old. I think nearly 10 years, isn't it?
Yeah, but I only discovered it this year.
Oh, okay.
And the Bible is also very old, but still very, very up to date for many people.
So yeah, so Daniel, you said this is sad. Now I'm moving to the most sad part. Sorry, right? And that is the state of South African aviation.
Oh shit.
So we have South African Airways, which is in business rescue practice and provisional liquidation. SA Express is liquidated. Comair has recently applied for business rescue. That includes British Airways South Africa and Kulula.com. FlySafair is operational. However, I did speak to the head of HR and they said it's touch and go. Mango is one of the only parts of the SAA ecosystem that is actually still profitable. So whether they're going to sell it and it still stays operational or what's going to happen with it is unknown, and I didn't want to speculate, so I just said unknown as it's part of SAA. Airlink is operational. I don't think I need to talk about Airlink a lot. Just a couple of notes. The South African government is in negotiations to start a new airline in place of SAA or restart SAA under a different brand or structure. Now, the problem is, and I don't think the people that are actually thinking about this, is that if you start on a different brand, you need a different AOC, which could take up to 18 months in South Africa. So there's a lot of challenges.
Others have done in the past, just take the AOC of SA Express or Airlink or Mango and just resurrect on the ashes or on the carcass of something that is existing.
That is possible, and it has happened before, but remember, we're talking about our cabinet.
And would it affect the debts? Because they want to get around the debts starting a new airline, I suppose, don't they?
That's correct. And that's why at this stage, the thinking is to sell the parts of SAA that is actually making money. SAA Technique, the technical part of that services all the other airlines. Mango, who is still profitable. So there is parts of it that they can sell to bring back money, but over the last 3 years, they've received, I can't remember if it's 30 billion rand or $30 billion. It's one of the two. So, but it's still a large amount of money, of bailout money. and when they've also been given a large amount of guarantor. So they've made loans with the government being the guarantor of those loans, and now they can't pay those debts back. So it's not looking good.
So
But,
fast forward 18 months, which of these airlines will be around?
Fly Safair and Airlink, I think, is the most likely.
You think Comair is going to fold after 67 years of consecutive profitability?
It depends on how long this takes. Because remember, Kulula.com has always said they've always been transparent and said we only make 1 to 2% profit, right, as an airline, which is typically an airline's profit. I was surprised when they went into business rescue so quickly. I didn't expect the business rescue part to come in within 2 months, especially for Comair. So I don't know what's going on the back end there. But then you have airlines like Sulenta, Fastjet, that's lying low in the back end, seeing who's going to lose routes, who's going to lose slots, and who's able.
Fastjet, I thought they were dead in the water already before COVID happened.
Yes, but Sulenta bought them.
Yeah, and Sulenta, I was very close with Sulenta also, and they got a unique business model. That's the whole thing with their relationship to transport goods in Africa.
Yeah, for the United Nations. Do you know Drago?
No, I know, what's his name, Adrian? I worked at Sulenta for a very short time. I was head of their technical side, and then on Mango, Christo, the CEO there, Besaidenoak, yeah, with the two of us did our MBAs together. So it's a small community of people there.
Yeah.
But I think that they will, and they also got the DHL contract in Africa, haven't they?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
So
they will survive, I think.
Yeah, no, the CEO, Drago Velicevic, is a very close family friend. It's almost like our closest friends. So he keeps me up to date what's going on with Fastjet and Sulenta. So, anyway, so currently there's no flying allowed in South Africa, inbound or outbound, except expatriate flights. From June 1st, domestic flights may be opened for valid business reasons only.
Wow.
So
that means you don't even have a domestic bubble.
Correct. So, and I would like to know what is a valid business reason. I've got a business lunch at the one and only in Cape Town. I'm flying down for the day. Is that a valid business reason? So definitely, especially if they've got my white wine. So that is the state of South African aviation, and that is the sad part. So I'm ending the sad part on, so we can move over to questions and answers.
MG, first of all, I'd say thank you.
Can you just switch off your presentation that we see more of the people now?
There we go.
Perfect.
And I think we shouldn't have our meeting on Mauritius. We should have it in South Africa. After this presentation, our real happy hour meeting should be in South Africa, not in Mauritius.
Yeah, just check with Turkish Airlines and with Jet2Com. Who of you would like to be the sponsor of this event? Yeah. Nobody is screaming me. Why not? I don't understand this.
Yeah, both flying into South Africa. No, not both, but Turkish is.
Yeah, I think Turkish flies to South Africa.
Definitely, yeah.
I don't think any other airline flies to more places in Africa than Turkish Airlines.
That's true.
Yeah,
The home carrier to Africa.
That's great company as well.
International destinations for Turkish Airlines initially, or is this something for later? Because Mustafa was explaining us last Friday that initially, of course, domestic travel first, but then later on also some international destinations. So is South Africa one of these?
I don't exactly remember if South Africa, but that's on route, yeah. In the second week of June, as far as I know.
But I think they would definitely fly into Germany, won't they? I mean, this is...
Yeah. Germany is one of the first countries that we are going to be flying. There are a couple of destinations, the initial destinations, but unfortunately we won't be flying to all the cities that are in our route, especially my brother-in-law lives in Hanover, but we are unable to fly to Hanover. I think we are going to be flying to Berlin, to Munich, Frankfurt, and as far as I know, there is a fourth city, but I don't know which one.
To which Berlin airport are you going to fly?
I don't know. Which one do you recommend?
Well, the current one, the Eagle is of course the best in the world, after Istanbul, of course.
Okay, that's acceptable.
But Daniel, which one in Istanbul?
Yeah, of course, the new one.
Okay.
Do you know that Atatürk Airport is more crowded than Istanbul Airport nowadays?
Really?
Yeah, because the cargo planes are going directly to Atatürk Airport.
Okay, that's a reason.
And the funny thing is that we have built a very huge hospital inside Atatürk Airport, which we can host around 1,000 people. And the main aim is to, bring sick people from abroad and cure them without letting them go elsewhere before you make the curement of them.
So they will go for 2 weeks into quarantine, basically, in that hospital.
They can directly stay in the hospital, yeah. And also, it's not just for Turkish citizens, also for other countries. We have built 3 hospitals, which we believe that we can host more than 3,000 people. And they are planning to bring some sick people from other countries. It is not just for Turkish nationals also.
And Jet2Com, where are you flying initially? Mainly to Spain?
Yeah, probably going to be Spain to start with. It'll just be wherever that we can fly to on the network. But the big problem for us is at the minute that our government is insisting that you have to quarantine for 14 days when you come back into the UK. So it's not really a problem going out into countries that are allowing people in. It's actually coming back into our own country. So
is this also true for, let's say, the Prime Minister is going on a travel to United States? He has to stay also 14 days in quarantine, or that's not valid for politicians?
Probably not valid for politicians or politicians' advisors. So
as just demonstrated by Mr. Cummings.
Yeah, exactly.
That's George Orwell territory. Some animals are more equal than other animals.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's like living in Great Britain for the last 3 years, to be honest. So.
Yeah, maybe you should start flying domestically. He must also know the members of government can visit their family.
I think Portugal is almost COVID-free country.
Where's
almost?
That?
Almost, yeah. So then Jet2Com can also fly to Portugal.
Of course. Oh, that would be great.
Like I say, we'll fly to anywhere that is on the network, that is allowing people in. Like Spain have announced this morning that they're not going to place people in quarantine, from, I think it's like the 1st of July, which is when we're restarting operations. But The big problem is coming back in. But I mean, our rate of infection is actually going down at the minute, whether you believe the figures or not. And if it continues to go down, then they'll probably revise the quarantine rules. But as it stands at the minute, you have to quarantine 14 days when you come back in. So unless you work for a company that's prepared to let you work from home for 2 weeks. I'm always a pragmatic guy, and I always try to find a workaround. What about you depart from United Kingdom, let's say to Portugal or Spain, and then you fly back to Northern Ireland? Yeah. Or let's say Ireland, and then from there people can walk just about the green border, and then with a bus getting back. Yeah, that could work. I mean, you should work in UK government, Daniel, you know what I mean? So.
You know what's funny? I was on the motorway driving actually into Bavaria on the weekend, and I saw a lot of Great Britain cars. Either they are leaving the country, but they must have been able to leave the country. They were also driving.
Maybe they're still stuck in Germany. Maybe they can't go back.
Yeah, they finally wanted to be on the right side of the street. Yeah.
No, they were just looking like they were doing vacation, or perhaps they've got some houses in the southern of Europe. I don't know, but it seems that they can leave the country at the moment.
Yeah, well, up until recently, there's been no restrictions on people coming in and out of the UK. It's only recently that they've decided to bring these restrictions in, but it's a bit late now. You know, like they should have done this straight away. But now they've decided to do it now after, you know, so many people have died. But whatever, just frustrating.
Well,
So I've got a question for you. I've got a question for you guys. Yeah, in the US, they're starting to, and it looks like people are seriously considering it, is immunity passports or some kind of an identification where you be tested, and once you can prove that you've got immunity to the virus, then they allow you to travel and to work, etc. Which, you know, obviously there's still questions about can you get it again? You know, where are you in the process of getting it? So I'm curious, is that something that's been talked about in Europe or not?
Yeah, the German Minister of Health was also suggesting this. I think it's put on hold at the moment, but we are discussing this too. On the other hand, the question is every other country recognizing this as a proof that you are immune?
I mean, I wouldn't mind
doing it. The country is somehow inventing it, and then you come to, I don't know, say China or Italy, and then they say no. So then it doesn't pay off.
But I mean, you have certain entry policies. I mean, Lionel, you and I know it from Timatic working for IATA, and you have a lot of entry policies. But why not? Why? I wouldn't mind to have such a passport. I mean, you've got anyway personal data on your passport nowadays, and why shouldn't you put that data on it? If it entitles me to travel, I would be doing it. I would be right away for it.
Yeah, I think the question in my mind, Christian, is it a fact that we know that if you have had the disease and they test you and they say you can prove that you got the antibodies, that you won't get it again? And
but that's the problem.
And it doesn't sound to me like that's a fact yet, unless.
No. I've also.
But the problem is if it's like a flu and it mutates, you can get it now again and again and again. So even if you got antibodies, you can still get another version of it. I mean, the flu you can always get because it changes every season. I don't know.
That's exactly the point then. So what is the value of that passport?
Exactly.
So ladies and gentlemen, sorry, I've got people waiting for me, the mother-in-law and the spouse waiting for me for dinner. So if you don't mind to excuse me. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. And on Wednesday, we are having Switzerland. So all of you who want to get an invite, please like and comment the thing in LinkedIn. And if you know other positive, enthusiastic, smart and upbeat people, just let us know. And we are always happy to widen the group.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Everybody have a great day.
Bye-bye.
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 Yeah, bye.